Welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, today is our Refreshers Orientation event, and we've been filling you in on all sorts of things that you need to know about the Open University. So far today, we've introduced you to Liz and Sally from PVC Students and spoken about the importance of student voice and given you a range of ways that you can make yourself heard and let us know how your studying's going. We've also had a look around the virtual learning environment with Georgina. We've looked at staying well in our studies and some tips for positive well-being and much, much more. So you can catch up on things that you've missed on our Student Hub Live YouTube page or also on the website. Now, our next session deals with your tutor, one of the most important contacts that you'll have here at the Open University. So to fill you in on this wonderful relationship and what to expect, I have two tutors here in the studio today, Isabella and Anactoria. Welcome both.
Hi.
Now, Isabella, you and I run the sessions in Adobe Connect.
Yes.
So if you're interested in coming along for some skills booster sessions, then we've got a whole programme, about one a month, workshops in Adobe Connect. And one of them that we're going to be running in the next week or so is about learning from feedback. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about your tutor. Now, students will have just been allocated a tutor if they're starting in February. And some of them, if they're starting in October last year, will already have a tutor. But there's never too early a time to start making contact with your tutor and making the most from them. In your experience, what's the best way for students to sort of start that relationship? Some may be emailed by their tutor, some may want to email their tutor first. What happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm usually watching for the allocation, so as soon as it drops in, I'll send out a group email and just sort of introduce myself and say hello and invite students to contact me. So if they reply, that's fantastic.
And if they don't, do you?
I tend to send weekly emails, so at any point students can contact. So sometimes I don't hear from students until they need an extension or they've got a question about something, but sometimes students drop me a line saying, oh, I've really enjoyed this bit, and that's great.
Okay, brilliant. What about you, Isabella?
I sort of tend to do, like Anactoria, I have the introductory email, which I invite people to respond back to. I then give it a little bit, and if I haven't heard, I will chase up the people just so that I know that they're there, and then because I know when I've run face-to-face tutorials, I've actually said to people there, do you know who your tutor is? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. So I want to make sure people know that I am the named person that they can come to with any questions. Yeah. And that's definitely worthwhile knowing at the start, because I remember when I first started studying, I was just thinking, well, who do I ask? Well, there's so many different things, and actually having a named person was great.
Okay, now we've got some questions for people to fill in at home. So we'd like to know, have you been in contact with your tutor? These multi-choice questions, all you do is select the item that applies to you. So yes, no, or I haven't been allocated one yet. What 3 things do you expect from your tutor? Now these word clouds, we need to put 3 things in, otherwise your results won't submit. If you can't think of 3, just put 1 or 2 and put a full stop in so that those results will submit. And we've got a continuum. We like these because the question is, whose responsibility is it to direct your learning? Now this is a very subjective thing, although there is always a right or wrong answer, but somewhere along the lines of your own responsibility, in which case you'd put mine or your tutor's. Okay, so fill us in on those things that you'd like to know, and of course any questions that you've got, do put in the chat box. HJ and George, welcome George to the hot desk.
Hi.
We'll be responding to those questions as well. Okay, so for people who don't know then, what does a tutor do? And what can students expect from them?
Right, well, we mark your work. We answer any questions you've got about the module materials. Yeah. And we can offer you more general support. So if there's something happening in your life and you're not quite sure how that's going to affect your study.
Like Brexit.
Yeah. or, you know, you've had a heavy cold and you've got behind for a couple of weeks and you're wondering, you know, how to refocus, you know. So anything big, anything small.
Okay, so marking your work, that's possibly the most important thing and something that students will be very interested in, which is why we have sessions on learning from your feedback, because it's all tailored to that specific student, which I guess is why it's important to be able to communicate with your tutor and let them know what you're trying to do, because some students might have so much going on and they just say, I'm just trying to get through, you know, it's not important to me, and I want you to know that I'm not going for high marks here, I'm just trying to get through because this is happening in my life right now. So how might they use that relationship, Isabella, and how does it then work with the feedback in terms of setting your own standards and stuff?
It definitely helps, because if, as a tutor, I would like to know if somebody is studying several different modules because they really, really want to get their degree done as quickly as possible, I'll give them advice about balancing their time. But if they are basically saying, look, I'm completely confident managing my own time. I will ask you a question if I need it. Please do not answer. Then that's fine. Just let me know. If you don't respond to any of my emails, then I'm likely to chase you up to say, look, I'm concerned. Is everything okay? So it's always worthwhile, even if it's just a very brief, yes, fine, I've read your email, I'm going to be happy with my study, that's okay. But yeah, with the tailored feedback, one of my modules, we have a personal development plan at the start. So those students I've had that have just been allocated, they've been working through that. And in it is a little bit of a why I want to study, what I'm trying to get out of it, and that's really useful. Most modules don't necessarily have that, but even if they don't, tell your tutor. If you are doing this because you're studying this one module because there's another course that you're going to be doing in a book university somewhere in September, tell your tutor that. Because the very interesting thing about that is when the marks come in, because if you want to go somewhere and study in September or October, your module might not quite have finished. So we're definitely going to need to work on what kind of feedback we can give you to help you pass on to somewhere else. I know that's probably a very specific situation, but there may well be some people listening today that affects.
Yeah. So it's important to own your own stuff and I guess be honest about that and realise that people study for very, very different reasons, and it's not always to be the best student. We were looking at that earlier, but there are different aims and different things in people's lives that can impact. Well, we asked people at home what things they expect from their tutor. So let's take a look at that and then we'll see whether that matches up to to their expectations. Okay, support is the big key word here. Guidance, advice, answering questions, encouragement, confidence building, tea and sympathy, helpful feedback, someone to listen, information, knowledgeable, mark assignments, marking work, tutorials. So there's a lot that goes on here, and perhaps something that we should maybe mention, in fact we're all involved in the Access programme, is that the tuition on Access is slightly different than tuition on other modules, and equally tuition in different faculties can feel quite different. Sometimes you might have one tutor delivering, sometimes there might be a cluster of tutors delivering various things, but they all basically fulfil the sort of same thing, with the exception of tea and sympathy, I think. Maybe virtual tea.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to have a cup of tea and, you know, listen to a student if they've got a crisis and they just want to chat, so that's fine, you know, I can give them a call. So.
Okay, but technically speaking, that's very nice of you, Anactoria. Technically speaking, they also have the student support team who we're going to hear about next. And the tutor, I guess, is sort of really responsible for the academic side of things. But one thing that is worth mentioning is that in addition to being tutors, tutors often do other things in life. I mean, many of them work for the OU because they really love what the university is doing, but they might have a job somewhere else, or they might be doing a lot of different things. So what does the contact look like, and how might students sort of, you know, should they worry if they've emailed their tutor and they haven't had a reply a few hours later?
No.
Oh. Should they think their tutor's there sitting there correcting their spelling?
I mean, even though I work for the OU full time, you know, sometimes I'm in meetings and, you know, I can't get back to a student immediately. So no, I mean, quite often a tutor will lay out their availability and their contact times, or how long a student could expect for a reply in their welcome email, for example. So, you know, students should perhaps check back and say, is there a good time to contact you, or, you know, how long should I wait? But generally, you know, you will hear back.
Yeah, normally I think it's about 2 days. They sort of give us a sort of vague guide type thing. But it can be really nerve-wracking, especially if you've written something really personal, maybe introducing yourself, or maybe you've got a question and you think, I'm not sure if this sounds silly. It can be really hard sort of thinking, oh, they've clearly thought it was or wasn't, and actually maybe they're just doing something else.
Yeah, there's no silly question. The only silly question is the one that you wonder about the answer and you don't ask it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, 52%, say that they have been in contact with their tutor already, which is absolutely wonderful. Mind you, people watching today are likely to be more diligent students and planning. So, but that's great. That's great to know. Okay. So initially, the tutor will send an email, sort of suggesting the best form of contact and guidance, etc. What sorts of things then might students be best telling their tutor about? How might they manage anxiety and things like that? For example, I mean, I had an email the other day from a student who was so panicked and was completely overwhelmed, and sent me an email saying, you know, I don't know what to do, and you know, I said to her, I can't help you with not knowing what to do, because you need to read the question, but it's obviously something so big in your life is happening right now that you can't sort of, you almost need to sit down and have a cup of tea and then sort of read and come back. So there's this whole thing about managing your own study and your own responsibility whilst using the tutor to the best effect. How might students best work with you both?
I always say to students, if you think there's going to be a problem, let me know, because it doesn't matter if there turns out to not be a problem. But if you're even slightly worried about something, let's nip it in the bud before it becomes a big thing. And And that works quite well, I think. You know, if students know that they've got somebody there, then that can, that can stop it being a big panic.
What sorts of things are they, Anactoria? Are they things like maybe they've got an appointment or an operation or something big in their life happening? Or is it things like, I'm really worried about referencing, I'm worried that my grammar won't be right?
Both of those things. I've got to go on a forum for my next assignment and there's 200 posts already. How do I manage that? I don't have time to read 200 posts. You know, and all of that stuff I can help with. I can suggest strategies for, you know, but I need students to let me know that that's an issue for them. And
what sorts of things do you get people worried about?
All sorts, but I think what I just wanted to pick out is let your tutor know. We aren't psychic. We're great. We often can foresee issues, but we're not going to foresee individuals' issues if they don't tell us. But yeah, there's all sorts of things. I've had a student already said, one of the ones that started in February, I've got a summer holiday booked. I didn't realise the summer was going to be, we would be studying in August, so we're away as a family for a month, and there's a deadline during that time. I don't know if I'm going to have reliable internet and that kind of thing. What do you suggest I do? Can I do the module, or am I automatically going to fail? So what I did with that particular student, I said, right, okay, there is one deadline there, but you can submit early. You just need to plan your time, and that's fine. You can do it because you don't have to do things every week. We give you a recommended study hours per week, but it's up to you to work out when you do them. We're not going to turn around and say, Karen, have you done 3 hours today? No, naughty girl.
No
you
cake
have
for
to
you.
do that. No cake for you, absolutely, yes. But it is, that's the personal responsibility. We're not going to force you. You're all adult learners. And you have to make that decision for yourself. You've made the decision, you've made the great decision to actually take control of your learning and you want to study, but you do still have to take that. We can help you as tutors, but we can't do it for you, and we can't just sort of say, oh, that's okay, we'll let you off studying 6 weeks, don't worry, you don't have to learn any of that. You still will have to do it, but we can sort of maybe say, look, maybe you could do a bit more time here and whatever.
And it's knowing what's important, because many tutors will sort of have an idea about the qualification and very certainly a very solid idea of the module, and they might be able to say, well, actually you could get away with skipping that, you could do that later, but this bit here you really need to pay attention to, when it can all seem very linear, I guess, on that study planner, can't it? You can think it all has the same weight. Well, we asked people at home whose responsibility it was to direct their learning, and let's see what people said. So, a lot of people saying it's my responsibility, which is fantastic. I think we would all agree with that. Some people saying it's a little bit in the middle. And I think certainly, you know, the fundamentals are that if you don't do it, it won't get done. Like you say, your tutor can't do it for you, but they can help guide your learning and work with that as well. Now, tutors are also part of other teams, and we're going to hear about the student support team as well later. What sorts of things then might students be best doing right now as they start the module?
Well, having a scan of the study calendar for the next few weeks, just seeing what's coming up, maybe the first assignment deadline. Making sure that you've got that in your diary and, you know, have a quick look at what you need to do to build up to that. Contact your tutor if you haven't already.
Well, now Caleb is worried because he hasn't heard from his tutor yet. So what should he do?
Okay, so the modules have, if it's a February module, they've only just started on Saturday. So it might well be that your tutor might have been away for the weekend, or is, you know, just kind of getting to grips with stuff now. So don't worry for a couple of days. If you've not heard by Wednesday, maybe just drop them another email.
So Caleb could write to his tutor first?
Yeah.
Another thing I could recommend is check your spam folder in your email.
Oh, yeah.
That is something that I definitely have seen. And in fact, I had an email from a student that went into the spam folder for me today, and I was like, oh, crumbs. So it might be that you might not realise it's from your tutor, because when we send out emails, they sort of have this weird numeric code on them because of the way we send them. If you just go, oh, everything like that, I'll just file away, make sure you haven't filed it away and missed it.
Right.
That could be something. I'm not saying it definitely is, but I know that has happened in the past. Also, you can check. I know that one of the earlier sessions was talking about forums and so on. If your tutor's posted on your tutor group forum, the likelihood is they probably sent a welcome email, which means that possibly something's gone wrong. Another very key thing is check your email on your record is actually correct. Again, that's something I've seen as a problem.
So many students have like a phone number that doesn't work or something, and it might have just been a typo or something, but yeah, it's important to make sure the information's right. You can do that on your student homepage. Okay. HJ and George, how's everyone at home?
We're doing well. We've got a few questions. I'm glad that we answered Caleb's question about not contacting the tutor, but Caleb's looking forward to first email within the first week. And Miles had a situation very similar to what Isabella described, where Miles went away for Thailand for 3 weeks in August, so submitted a TMA before leaving and then after leaving as well. But we've been looking at our study buddies as well, which we've been very excited about. We've had loads come in. So we had Zoe's study buddy, Sooty, come in as well. And Kate's study buddy is up there on our board. And we've also got Zulu and Calvin just behind George as well. And Kerry's study buddy. That's one of my favourite pictures of today so far, I think. But if you wanted to send anything in to us, studenthub@open.ac.uk by email, or at Student Hub Live through our Twitter. And in the chat as well, we were wondering if Isabella and Anactoria have their own study buddies as well while being tutors.
Oh, okay. Cat conversation and dog conversation.
Yes. I have 2 tabby cats, one of whom knows when I'm doing something and sits on the desk, or rather stands on the desk and smacks me repeatedly around the face with his tail, which is not very helpful when I'm in the middle of a tutorial. So some of my students will have heard me going, "Oh, pack it in," trying to be subtle, or might suddenly go off the microphone. And
So not
yes.
so much a study buddy, more a study bully.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Oh, you're talking to somebody else, you should be talking to me. Yes.
And I've got a miniature long-haired sausage dog called Fred.
Oh, who's beautiful.
He is beautiful, and he's normally very well behaved, but snores as soon as I go online to do a tutorial. So I have to reassure students he can only hear me. I've got headphones on. He's only reflecting boredom at my voice. So.
Oh, my dog does that as well. And it's really hard when you're late at night trying to work and they're all snug and snoring away. It's very difficult. Yes, so we do have our study buddies, and this is the beauty as well of tutorials and things, is that you can do them in your own home, and our students are logging on as well, probably with their study buddies.
I quite often lift Fred up to the video camera just so they can see. This is the one responsible for the noise.
Oh, and it's important, I think, because tutors are human, of course, and so getting that relationship is really important to get right. But one of my best students actually never spoke to me and did perfectly well, thank you very much, all on her own, whereas other students can sort of need and want more. So the thing that I guess a lot of students are concerned about is how much is too much contact, or, you know, how can students go about trying to ask for what they want, and what is reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that depends. It depends on whether students are just wanting a very quick email, you know, a couple of times a week. That's fine, I can do that.
Yeah.
Longer sessions less frequently, that's fine too. So talk to your tutor, you know, ask the question.
Yeah.
You know, what's okay?
Yeah.
I've got questions about this. How do you prefer them?
Yeah.
You know, they're quite happy to answer that and let you know, yeah.
And it's also, I think, about thinking why you might want certain things. I had one student who kept sending emails and then would figure the answer out afterwards, and then like I'd reply, and then all of a sudden she'd already have figured it out. But actually that act of writing can be really sort of solid, and so we ended up sort of having a thing where she'd send a weekly email of the questions, and she'd keep the ones on that she hadn't sort of got through, and it really boosted her confidence, because she was then saying, actually, I have sorted a lot of this out, and she didn't need me quite as much as she thought she did, and that independence really sort of built her up a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, building towards independence, because we're always really happy to answer people's questions, but if you're sending a great big long email every day and your tutor isn't available every day, I know some of us, as we said, we're here more, but there's some tutors who only tutor one module and they might only be available a couple of times a week. Yeah. So if you're sending an email every day and your tutor only gets to it after the third day, you probably built yourself up into a little bit of a panic. So maybe think, right, why did I need to ask that?
Yeah.
Had I read the instructions, because you were saying earlier, but reading the instructions generally does help quite a lot, because you may well have a question that has already been spelt out somewhere. Yeah. So have a look. You can ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, but make sure you're not just asking questions because you can't really be bothered to read the information. That's not really taking your own responsibility, and you will end up struggling more as a result of that, because when your tutor is away for any reason and can't answer, then you're going, oh heck, I don't know what to do, because I'm not used to reading the questions for myself. Yeah. So remember this bit, you're adult learners and we're there to help you and guide you, but with sort of this ramped idea that we're going to try and help you be free, fly free, or whatever you want to call it, and be able to be independent. Obviously, as you said, there's some students who are like that to begin with, and that's fine, don't need you. You can just mark my stuff, it's okay, I don't need you for anything, which is absolutely fine as well.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Now, Isabella, you're going to give students an opportunity to try a tutorial later, but it won't be a proper tutorial because you're not going to teach them anything. You're just going to let them do a fun game, aren't you?
I'll come up with a new idea and I'll say excitable about it.
So if you'd like to go and play Isabella's idea, 1:35, there's going to be an Adobe Connect session, so you can go and see what the online tutorial system is all about. But tutors do deliver tutorials, either mainly on their own or with other tutors. How important would you guys say it is to attend those tutorials, and how important is it to attend the ones that your tutor's delivering? Does it matter?
I mean, there's differentiated models across different modules. So sometimes there'll be a tutorial that your tutor's not running for whatever reason. It's been split across the tutor body. And that's fine, because sometimes it's really helpful to get a different perspective on things to do with the module. You know, we're all coming at the module from slightly different places.
Yeah.
But if you can go to a tutorial, either online or face-to-face, and meet your tutor, then that's great too, because, you know, you put a face to the name and, you know, that person's marking your work, and it's a chance to build that relationship.
Now, it's a very important thing here, because a lot of students say, oh, there's a lot of variety in terms of how my work is marked. My tutor's nice, or my tutor's being hard on me. What's the lowdown in terms of how those grades are standardised?
Well, we have marking notes. And we have to stick to the marking notes, and we have our own work double marked by somebody else to make sure we're sticking to the marking notes. So if you think your tutor's harsh, they probably aren't, because unless it's been picked up, and it's not actually that often where a tutor is completely different to the marking notes, because we're all professionals and we know what's required. So have a little look at it and go, actually, are they actually harsh, or look at the feedback. Why did you get the mark you got?
Yeah.
And and it's the different tutors do have a different approach to different things, and we write feedback in a different way. Look at what that feedback is. That's actually quite important. Get past some of the other bits and think about your learning experience.
And if you don't understand it, it's really important to clarify that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, excellent. Well, you filled us in on so much there. Meanwhile, Cheryl is at work and is taking a sneaky peek at Student Hub Live. That's excellent multitasking, Cheryl. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, final piece of advice then for our new students then.
Get in touch with your tutor, you know, make a start, but enjoy it, you know, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and let us know if there's anything you think is going to affect your study. Let us know. Anactoria was saying earlier about getting deadlines in, and I mentioned about the student with the holiday. Have a quick look through your whole study calendar. Don't let something sneak up on you, particularly the students starting now with the summer. We know that the summer, it's the same with the ones in October. It's Christmas. Christmas gets in the way, and people go, oh, well, I shouldn't have had anything. Christmas is exactly the same as the summer holidays, and that's the reality.
And they happen every year.
They do, don't
they? I know. Well, yeah, indeed. Okay, HJ.
Yeah, I think George has picked up on a fantastic question for our tutors.
Yeah, we've got one where a student's Jeanette, and she's saying that she has a tutorial in Swansea Uni. Where can I expect to go?
Oh, good question.
Where do I go?
What
can I expect?
Or what can she expect?
Sorry.
Excellent. Wow.
There will be a tutorial description, and that it will say information. There will be also, if it's a face-to-face one, where it says Swansea University, there will probably be a hyperlink somewhere along the line. Click on that hyperlink and it will open a whole page of information about where you might have to go, because it will be at the weekend. You may or may not have room allocations yet. I know in one that I went a couple of weeks ago, I just basically had to wander around and find the place. But it's a case of when you go to a face-to-face, if you've booked in, tutors tend to contact people ahead of time to give them a little bit of information. Make sure you're there in advance of the start time, so you plan your journey. Because if it starts at 10 o'clock and you plan to arrive there at 10 past,
you'll be late.
You'll be late and you'll miss a little bit. Or if you plan to arrive at 5:02 and you can't find a parking space, it's a little bit tricky. But you don't have to arrive half an hour early, because that's a bit, especially on a Saturday morning. You want to stay in bed. But you can expect what the tutorial description tells you, basically. And if it's a first tutorial, it will be meeting the tutor, a bit of an outline of the module, meeting the other people, a little bit of the tutor tips. That's what I like to do in the first session, is this is something that's really important, and these are the kind of things people make mistakes on, and a bit of an overview. And usually first tutorials tend to be a bit more fun and relaxed without quite so much academic conduct. Conduct? What am I talking about?
But I mean, normally I teach at Swansea, and normally, you know, there are about 10 or so students there. So it's often a very nice small group, and you often design activities and things. But what I've never ever done, I don't know whether you have, is I've never turned up and said, who is behind on their reading, and here's a quiz for you all. It's all very nice and informal, and everyone's at different levels and different paces, and you know, it's all about sort of, I guess, consolidating that content, isn't it, and thinking about what you've been doing, often with a view to the assessment.
And especially because if this is a tutorial for quite early on the February presentations, you know, it's going to be very light touch and about looking forward and about, you know, introducing some of the things that students are going to meet in the next couple of weeks. So they really shouldn't worry, you know, if they feel that they're not quite, you know, they're not 3 weeks ahead now. You don't need to be.
And everyone feels slightly nervous before a tutorial.
Even the tutors.
Even the tutors. But it's always a really sort of nice space, and a space to take questions and meet other students as well.
Actually, probably one thing worth saying, if you want to go to face-to-face and you feel very uncomfortable answering questions, let the tutor running it know ahead of time. Because as a tutor, I don't want to suddenly put somebody on the spot if they know that that makes them really uncomfortable and it's going to make them upset. So just let people know, and just have a quick word at the start and say, by the way, I'm the person that said to you, please don't ask me a question directly. Because we're not necessarily going to remember the name immediately, but if you just remind us, then we won't put you on the spot. Not that we put people on the spot, but it might be a case of, what do you think, because we want to involve people, because you're there.
Brilliant, excellent. Well, that's been super helpful. Thank you so much. And in our next session, we're going to be speaking to some colleagues from the student support team who will talk about the importance of filling in any information about yourself that your tutor might need to know, so that when you do book on a tutorial, your tutor will have all of the information there. So if you've got accessibility or other requirements as well, they can cater for that. Anactoria and Isabella, thank you so much. And if you'd like to join Isabella in the online room session, that is at 1:35. Our next session is going to be the student support team. But before that, I'm going to show you a student video from Frank, which is about being a nervous student. So join me for our next session with the student support team in a few minutes.